And what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to the Phoenix channel. It's going to be a 8-minute rant. If you like this content, consider hitting the like button. Consider subscribing to this channel. So I thought I'd do a quick video today on essentially some thoughts I had on Fractally and some of the questions, I guess, that still remain. And I think it's important and it's healthy to have folks within the community, any community, basically evaluating things, critiquing it, right? You need voices of critique. You can't all just be drinking the Kool-Aid. So I've mentioned in the past that I'd like to drink the Kool-Aid. I don't think I've made a video that succinctly encapsulates my questions or my thoughts on, I guess, how I'm coming about this. So this video will attempt to kind of explain that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, I guess, what I'm sharing. If you think they're valid points or if you have counter arguments, I'd like to hear those. And ultimately, it would be actually really nice to have a maybe a live discussion or a live debate, to talk it out. Old school crypto. So one of the ideas or one of the questions I had about Fractally is after being a part of the fireside chats and hearing Dan's most recent interview on the Helios channel. Shout out to those guys. Shout out to Chris Barnes for stepping up and making some new video content for the community. First question I had is it goes back to the derivation of value. And so we do know that value is, I guess, in the eyes of the beholder, but there probably needs to be some way to establish as a community, like if someone's going to use or say ascertain a value, there's usually some parameters that are inputted to derive that, right? So that there's some reference markers. Like in the current economic system we know that value is one component of value is time. Another component of value is the cost of labor in US dollars, for example. And with that comes obviously the amount of time that a team is spending to create a product or service. And so I think without having those types of, say, templates or criteria in some of these Fractally communities, it's going to be very difficult to determine value from users that are maybe subject matter experts across different sets of specialty, right? So if you have a researcher, maybe a social researcher or a scientist undertaking some work, that's very different than having, for example, a coder or a programmer or a marketer do the work. And so how to gauge the various levels of effort, I think within these diverse communities, or say a community generally like EOS, with those categories of work or effort, marketing, developing apps, other types of activities, is going to be a little bit hard to do. Community work, right? And so how is value derived? Can there be some set of reference set up so that amongst different projects, there's a relative method to quickly evaluate the time that was spent, the amount of money maybe that was spent, and the amount of personnel maybe that was spent, the level of difficulty that's involved. And this is particularly important because, again, not everybody is educated or informed to evaluate something that is so specific. And so that continues to be my critique on this idea, along with some concerns with nepotism and tribal alliances, right, that form, whether that's political or cultural or racial. I mean, these are inherent facets of our world today. I mean, we're seeing that play out on stage. So if Fractally, if Dan gets maybe his dream and there's thousands or tens of thousands of people maybe using this concept, one question might be, how does this concept address, or does it address, those inherent biases? especially the cultural one. And the other second thing is, individual teams doing the work may actually take a lot longer, right, to complete that task. So when you think about if this system, for example, if the idea is to supplement the traditional governments and ways in which we do public goods, for example, in the real world, I'm not talking about the virtual world, many a times a project can take years in the making. It could take hundreds of individuals, and the progress to go from, say, the inception stage to a completion stage can be months, years in the making. So how does the system, again, are there frameworks or working sets that can be actually developed and maybe put into a library within Fractally to give it some meat and potatoes, where teams that have these longer base projects can have a way to go to the community and maybe receive a milestone payment, right? But also tell the story about where they are in their milestones, where they are at in their projects. Because one of the things is a team can go to one Fractally meeting, right, on 1 week, say week 0, and maybe in week 6 they go back to the Fractally meeting. Who's tracking the level of relative progress throughout those? If the team goes in with the same story and explains this massive project that's been undertaken, but maybe there's no progress that's been done in that time, how's that ascertained by the 6 people that are essentially not focused and glued in on that project? So I think there needs to be some general project controls or work controls, a way to show what's been conveyed in the initial meeting and how work has been done since then. Because again, in the practical world, we're not just talking about making soup for a community, which would only be done in a day. We're talking about projects that would take years in the making. So that is a issue I have with Fractally. And the last issue I'll say is ultimately, how do you validate who's done the work? So this could be the subject who's doing the work, so verifying that the person claiming to have done this thing, they've actually done it. That's one issue. And then, how do you know what they're claiming was the time spent on doing this, or the cost that was spent, or the expertise that was spent is actually valid? Someone could take maybe something that already exists and claim that they've made it, and the community would have no way to really know that unless it was a virtual product. So those are my rants for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. With that said,